Here's something nobody warned you about. The same brain that helps you solve complex problems, see through people's intentions, and think 10 steps ahead is also the exact brain that makes it nearly impossible to just enjoy a Tuesday afternoon without something quietly gnawing at you. And if you've ever sat in a moment that should feel perfect and still felt vaguely empty, this is going to hit uncomfortably close to home. Because here's what the research actually shows. Higher intelligence is not a guaranteed path to happiness. In many documented cases, it's the opposite. And understanding why might be the most useful thing you learn today. Let's start with the obvious thing nobody says out loud. Intelligent people are wired to find the problem. That's the whole game. Pattern recognition, critical analysis, identifying what's wrong before it gets worse. Your brain is essentially a fault detection system running 24 hours a day, and it's very, very good at its job. The issue is, it doesn't clock out. Psychologists call this rumination, the tendency to repeatedly analyze situations, conversations, outcomes, and decisions long after they've passed. Studies published in the journal Psychological Science found a direct correlation between high verbal intelligence and increased rumination, meaning the more articulate your inner world is, the louder and more detailed the self-critical commentary gets. Most people have a bad day and move on. You have a bad day, and your brain opens a full investigation. But it goes deeper than that. There's a concept in psychology called the hedonic baseline. Basically, every person has a default happiness level their brain returns to after good or bad events. Win the lottery, you'll feel amazing, then drift back. Lose your job, you'll feel terrible, then drift back. Your baseline is remarkably stubborn. Now here's the part that stings. Research from the London School of Economics suggests that people with higher IQs actually report lower satisfaction with social interaction and everyday life experiences. Their baseline isn't just stubborn, it's harder to move upward because their expectations are calibrated differently. The bar keeps rising the moment it's cleared. You achieve the goal and immediately your brain says, okay, but what about this next thing? Satisfaction has a very short shelf life when your mind is already 3 goals ahead. And then, there's the awareness problem. Intelligent people are acutely aware of the gap between what is and what could be, in the world, in relationships, in themselves. Philosophers have called this the curse of consciousness. The more clearly you see reality, the harder it becomes to ignore its flaws. Albert Camus wrote about this. The absurdity of being a thinking creature in a world that offers no clean answers. Existential awareness isn't reserved for philosophy classes. It shows up on Sunday evenings when everything is technically fine and yet something feels completely unresolved. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski studied this in depth and identified what he called overexcitabilities in highly intelligent individuals: psychomotor, sensual, intellectual, imaginative, and emotional. Basically, highly intelligent people don't just think more, they feel more, notice more, react more intensely to the same stimuli that barely registers for others. You're not being dramatic. Your nervous system is genuinely processing a louder, more complex version of the same world everyone else is walking through, which creates a painful irony. The very depth that makes you interesting, creative, and insightful also makes you more susceptible to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and a kind of low-level existential restlessness that never fully goes away. Researchers at Pitzer College found that high IQ individuals showed greater likelihood of experiencing psychological disorders not because they are broken, but because their minds are more sensitively tuned to the frequency of uncertainty. And uncertainty is everywhere if you're actually paying attention. Here's the part that doesn't get discussed enough, though. Intelligent people often struggle with happiness because they have quietly rejected the things society says should make them happy. The linear career, the conventional milestones, the social scripts that everyone seems to follow without questioning, they see through the performance. They know the corner office doesn't fix the internal noise. They've read enough, thought enough, observed enough to know that most prescribed paths to happiness are just comfortable distractions. But dismantling the map everyone else is using doesn't automatically give you a better one. So what you're left with is a person who is too self-aware for easy answers, too analytical for blind faith, and too honest with themselves to pretend that things feel fine when they don't. That is not a personality flaw. That is what happens when a mind that was built for depth tries to live in a world optimized for speed and surface. The research suggests something important here. Happiness for highly intelligent people doesn't come from achieving more, thinking more, or solving the next problem. It tends to come from a very deliberate choice to engage with the present moment, despite the brain's constant pull toward analysis and future projection. Flow states, deep human connection. Creative work that demands full attention. These aren't just nice ideas. They are neurologically the conditions under which the overthinking brain finally gets to rest. Not because the problems disappear, but because for once, there's something worth being present for. So if your intelligence has ever felt less like a gift and more like a sentence, you're not alone. You're just carrying something most people don't fully see. And understanding it, really understanding it, is usually where things slowly start to shift.